Zach Abraham, welcome back to Undivided.
Hey, always good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so here's the headline from Newsweek that was just out. It says the results are in. Bidenomics is a complete failure. What say you?
Every time the term gets used, there's a part of me that dies and there's a part of me that dies laughing because it works. And you're sitting there going, well, you printed $7 trillion and threw it around the economy, like, pardon the term, but like a rapper at a strip club. You know what I mean? You're just throwing money everywhere. And you're like, oh yeah, look at the growth. And you're going, well, yeah, it's going to make things look good for a second. The analogy we use here in the office is, you could have a person on their deathbed and you pump them full of enough amphetamine. Yeah, they're going to perk up for a little bit, right? But then you're sitting there going, okay, well, as soon as this wears off, you're back to, being flat on your back. And the whole we're going to dump $7 trillion into the economy and it's going to give us a short-term boost. Yeah, that's some brilliant economic thinking, right? What happens when the 7 trillion's gone? Right? That's the question. And I think it's not really much of a question. I think the reality of that is knocking on the door right now.
Well, the question is how long, though, because we have an election year coming up. Oftentimes, if there is something happening in the economy that Americans aren't going to be happy about, there are these efforts, often artificially, to try to make people feel good just long enough to get their ballots in. So, I mean, how long do you see before that comes crashing down?
I really have a hard time seeing things remain in the sort of they're decelerating really quick right now, Brandi. The problem is that economic numbers by definition are backward looking. So for instance, the best analogy I can give you, especially in the setup that we've been through over the last 3 years, so I have a guy's redoing my backyard right now. We scheduled it a year and a half ago. Okay, so a lot of big money purchases or a lot of the biggest inputs into GDP calculations are things that occurred a year and a half to 2 years ago and are just being realized, right? If you went under contract to have a home built a year and a half ago, you know, you make the final payment for that house a month from now, 2 months, that goes into this year's GDP, but it's not reflective of this year's growth, right? It's a purchase that happened 2 years ago. And so we were just reading, everybody's like, oh, everything looks great. And we read in our daily podcast thing that we put out minutes from the Fed at the end of 2007 saying they expected 2.75% growth in 2008. Well, we all know what happened, right? So this happens at the end of every cycle. Everybody thinks it's going to go on forever and bad things can't happen. And then reality sets in. And I think you're in the process of that happening now. The unemployment rate jumped from 3.5 to 3.8 over the last 3 months. It's not a huge move, but I think by the end to middle of end of second quarter of next year, I think you should probably be, I will be surprised if it is not broadly recognized that we're in recession.
So, is there anything that you think that the Biden administration, you could see them doing to try to avoid that broad recognition in the middle of an important election year?
The only thing I think they've really pushed the only lever that they really can, meaning we know the constitutional and legal issues they've got with paying off student loans. I won't be surprised if they make more overtures to that. I will not be surprised if you see them trying to burn down more of the SPR, because that's another thing that's happening right now. You don't hear a lot of people talking about it. You've got the dollar index back above 105, which anytime you get above 105, it's like putting the brakes on the global economy. At the same time, you have oil topping over 90 again, and you still have CPI running at 4.5 to 5. So every tick you see the dollar index go up, that is less stuff that we will sell internationally. And every tick dollar you see oil go up is less stuff that you'll see bought here domestically. So I don't think there's much they can do. I'm sure they're going to try to put lipstick on the pig, but unless they want to throw they need another inflation prevention act, right? We gotta spend more money to buy down inflation. But outside of that, outside of more money giveaways or promises to give money away, which I would assume they're going to try to do, I don't think there's any way around it.
Yeah, even Biden said he wishes that they had named their Inflation Reduction Act something else because he's like, well, technically that's not what it does. I'm like, You think?
Yeah, we're going to spend $1 trillion to bring inflation down. That makes, well, you know what? Honestly, though, that's perfect Joe Biden, isn't it? Like, here's how I'm going to tackle inflation. We're going to print another $1 trillion and spend it. I think that makes about as much sense as the rest of his domestic policy. So, I par for the course as far as I'm concerned.
Well, how about next time we have you back on, maybe next month, we'll talk, we'll try to segue that into, I don't know if it's good news, but try to give people the tools they need to weather whatever storm is coming, okay?
Yeah, and I think it definitely calls for that. So let's do that.
All right, Zach Abraham, thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you so much, Brandi.
And if you don't want to wait until next month to find out how you can survive Bidenomics, Zach is doing a free live webinar Thursday, so September 28th, starting at 3 p.m. It's free to sign up. Just go to knowyourriskradio.com, knowyourriskradio.com. You can get advice, hear about their investment strategy, and hear how they can try to help you weather that unpredictable economy that we are unfortunately venturing into more and more by the day.